I'm Jeff Smith. In this video we're going to learn how to create races in TackTracker. Races we create will be stored in the track library here on the left hand tab under year and month, and will be a permanent record of our racing. To view a race, all we need to do is select a race here in the track library and we can replay it again. So to create a race we can go to the race editor to bring up this dialog and click Create New Races. And here we can specify the date of the race and also the location on the globe where the race is occurring. If we've defined a landmark, we can use that landmark to specify the lat and long for that location. We then click Next, and that'll take us to the Create New Races dialog. I'm going to exit this dialog now, because the way that I would normally do it would be to go to the track loader and use some tracks that I might have already loaded in order to help me create the race. In this case, I'm going to just look at tracks that were recorded on the 12th and select just a small number of tracks. I can hold down the Control key to select more than one track. If I select too many tracks, the screen can get a little bit cluttered. You notice that when I select the tracks, that those tracks appear in the main window, and I can drag the timeline to see the boats move around. Okay, let's go ahead and click the Add Races button to get the Create New Races dialog, but this time it's already populated with the date, and the time span here is equal to the time span for the track that I selected. Now this time span is interactive. I can drag it in. The red triangles indicate the ends of the track, and I'm going to cut off any areas outside those red triangles. The red circle represents the start time for my race. Now in this race session we actually had two back-to-back races, so I'm going to specify the number of races as 2, and you can see that I've got 2 red circles. So the first step is to specify the number of races, and then I just drag the circles along to the approximate start time for those races. So the first one was round about 11:20, and the second one was round about 12:50, I believe. So we'll leave that there. That's good enough. We'll fine-tune that later. Let's give the race a name. Notice how that because I've got more than one race, they automatically get suffixed with the race number. This table here specifies the start times for the races. If I know the exact start time, I can type it in like that. Or if I don't know the start time, I can use this main track area to try and discover what the start time is. Now the way we go about that, let's just zoom in a little bit. It may look like a bit of squiggle, but typically you'll see the boats milling around, and then as we drag forward they take off on the course. So you just need to backdate the timeline till at the point at which they take off, which is there. Now actually that's the wrong time, because I think that is a false start, so we'll just keep going. There, that's where they're taking off on the course, so that is the point of the start there, 11:22. So that's the first start. Click here now and we'll go to the second start. I'll zoom in again. So we're now around about 12:50, we're milling around, and that's the start there. So I just wind these back to where I think they're starting, which is about here. I can always fine-tune this again later when I have more boats defined. Lastly, I can wind back the end point here. If we take this to the point at which they're heading home, we can see that we can probably cut the track off around about 1:50 quite comfortably. So we'll bring that back here. Alright, so that's defined the timeline and the start times for my 2 races. I've given them a name. At this point I can go ahead and create the races, but they won't have any courses or marks defined. Now because I've got 2 races that use the same course, it makes sense to add the course and marks now. That'll save me doing it twice. So here I get into the main race editor dialog, and the way that we specify a course in TackTracker is simply to type in the course, so as in the order that the marks are rounded. So in this case we went to mark A, then mark B, then mark C, then mark A, and then mark C again. I don't specify the start boat and start pin, and I put a space between each of the mark names. I can use more than one character for the mark names if I want. We do have some predefined courses here, for example this one here or this one here. In this case I've used the dash here between two mark names just to create a gate mark. So if I go back to the course that I'm using, if mark C was actually a gate mark, I could specify it like that. Or I could do C1, C2. Okay, so the marks that I need to lay here are in red. The other thing I want to do for this course is that we actually finished through the start line. So by checking here, you can see I only have to lay the start boat and start pin. I don't need to lay the finish mark at all. Okay, so let's go ahead and lay the marks. Okay, now I'm just going to position the start line approximately like that. In this particular race we actually had trackers on the start line, so those marks will be corrected when the tracks for those start boat and start pin get loaded in. Okay, and then we can just watch the boats sail around the course. We can see this is where the first mark is, so we'll put mark A. I just click on the A, and as I drag my mouse into the plot area I can see an A icon. It says lay mark A at the top as well. I click to lay the mark. Just move that down so you can see this text up here. Let's lay mark B. Click. Okay, and then I can go and relay the mark if I want to. I can click on it and then reposition it if I need to. If I move my mouse outside the plot area, the lay gets cancelled. So I clicked on C. If I move outside, it gets cancelled, so I have to click on it again. Okay, we'll put mark C up here. Okay, so we've laid all the marks, and let's just follow the boats around, make sure that it's good. Okay, and we come back down. Oh, I see that mark A is actually moved the second time around. So to handle the movement of a mark, I use the mark drag tool. Click on the mark drag tool, click on the mark that I need to move, and then I drag it down to the new location. Okay, so now we can see when we move the timeline, it swaps to the new location at that point. So I moved it at this point in the timeline because this is where the boats are going around and I can see where to put the mark in its new position. But I actually want the mark to move to that new location well before this. So what I do now is I drag the boats back to the beginning of the leg, and I click the mark drag tool again. So I click the mark in its original location, and then I can now tell where the new location should be. So I click here again, and there's the new location. So as we move the boats forward, the mark suddenly jumps forward to the new location there. Perfect. So that's all I need to do. So one more thing I could mention is when I do click on a mark, I do have the latitude and longitude down here, so if I did know the exact lat and lon for the marks, I can type them in. It's often quicker though just to point and click on the map like I've done. So let's save and close that, and now we're ready to create our races. Click Create Races, and it's saved those races to the track library. Let's go back to the track library now, and we can see here is sample race 1 and sample race 2. I'll click on sample race 1, and there it is. And we can just make sure that that's working. Come around to mark A, B, C, and then see the mark move to its new location, and away we go. So the races are defined. All I need to do now is add the remaining tracks to these races. To do that, I go to the track loader, and I find the tracks for the particular date. Again, I can sort by date or filter by date, and pick a bunch of tracks like that. And then the track loader, I can save my selected tracks to these selected races, and you can see that those two races I created now show up here. Click the Save to Races button, and it's saved those 16 tracks to the races. So let's load this race again, and now we can see we've got a whole lot more tracks. So that's it. That's creating races in TackTracker, and I hope you enjoy. The next video we're going to look at how we can publish our races to the TackTracker cloud.